My name is Amelia Hayes, and for as long as I can remember, my sister, Olivia, saw my happiness as a direct threat to her own. It wasn't just sibling rivalry, it was a deep-seated malice that festered and grew, culminating in the day she tried to shatter the most important moment of my life. But what she didn't realize was that she wasn't just dealing with a hurt sister anymore. She was dealing with a woman who had learned, painfully, how to fight back. Our story, or rather, the story of how I became the woman I am today, truly begins long before my wedding. It starts in the shadow of Olivia's perceived brilliance. She was always the talented one, the artistic one, lauded by our parents for her effortless charm and creative flair. I, on the other hand, was the bookish one, the serious one, my achievements often met with a dismissive pat on the head while Olivia's mediocre sketches were framed and admired. I learned early on that my path to validation would be one I had to carve myself, without their approval, often despite their subtle sabotage. I channeled every ounce of that unspoken resentment and desire for recognition into my studies. While Olivia was out partying, I was buried in textbooks, fueling my ambition with caffeine and a burning need to prove myself. I aced my way through high school, secured a full scholarship to a prestigious university, and plunged into the world of tech with a singular focus: to build something, to be someone that no one, especially my family, could ever diminish. The years that followed were a blur of coding, late-night development sprints, and relentless networking. I founded a small startup in my early 20s, an AI-driven platform designed to optimize supply chain logistics. It was a niche market, but I saw the potential even when everyone else, including my family, scoffed. Another one of Amelia's little projects, I overheard my mother tell an aunt at a family gathering. She should really try to be more social, like Olivia. Their words, meant to sting, only hardened my resolve. I poured every fiber of my being into that company, living off instant noodles and sheer determination. Slowly, painstakingly, my vision began to materialize. The platform gained traction. Small clients turned into medium-sized enterprises, and then, a major breakthrough, a multi-million-dollar contract with a global logistics giant. Suddenly, my little project was making waves. My startup wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. At 28, I found myself on the Forbes 30 Under 30 list, and my company was valued at over $100 million. I was a self-made CEO, a force in an industry dominated by men, and I had done it all without a single word of genuine encouragement from the people who should have been my biggest champions. Olivia, meanwhile, had drifted from one artistic endeavor to another, never quite settling, always relying on my parents for financial support. Her art career consisted mostly of selling a few paintings to family friends and complaining about the lack of appreciation for true talent in the modern world. The gap between us, once an emotional chasm, was now also a financial one, vast and undeniable. My parents, who had once celebrated her every whim, now subtly pressured her to find something stable, a stark contrast to their previous favoritism. It was around this time that I met Daniel. He was everything I hadn't known I needed: kind, intelligent, grounded, and utterly unconcerned with my net worth or public profile. He saw me, Amelia, the woman who loved quiet evenings and obscure documentaries, not Amelia Hayes, the tech CEO. Our connection was immediate and profound, and within a year, he proposed. It was a beautiful, intimate moment, and I finally felt like I was building a family of my own, one based on love and respect, not conditional approval. Planning the wedding was a joyous experience. Daniel and I chose a stunning vineyard upstate, envisioning a warm, elegant celebration with our closest friends and family. I extended an olive branch to Olivia, asking her to be a bridesmaid, hoping that perhaps, just perhaps, this happy occasion could be a turning point for us. She accepted, of course, with a saccharine smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I chose to be optimistic. The weeks leading up to the wedding were a whirlwind. My company was preparing for another funding round, and the stress was immense, but the excitement of marrying Daniel kept me buoyant. Olivia, however, seemed increasingly agitated. She made passive-aggressive comments about the cost of the venue, the extravagance of my dress, and how lucky I was to have landed someone like Daniel. I brushed them off, attributing them to pre-wedding jitters or perhaps just her usual bitterness. Then came the rehearsal dinner. It was a beautiful, intimate gathering, filled with laughter and heartfelt toasts. Olivia, however, had clearly been drinking more than anyone else. As the evening wound down, just as Daniel's best man was delivering a touching speech, Olivia, swaying slightly, grabbed a microphone from the bandstand. "Excuse me, everyone," she slurred, her voice cutting through the warm atmosphere like a shard of ice. "I just wanted to add a little something. Amelia, she's always been so driven, hasn't she? So focused on her success." She paused, her eyes, full of a strange, intoxicated malice, fixing on mine. "But what a lot of you don't know is that Amelia wasn't always this perfect." My heart pounded in my chest. I knew exactly where this was going. She was going to reveal something deeply personal, something I had confided in her years ago during a moment of vulnerability. It was a story about a humiliating public speaking incident in high school where I'd completely frozen on stage, a moment that had scarred me and fueled my determination to overcome my anxieties. I had told her it in confidence, a plea for understanding. "Remember that time in senior year, Amelia?" Olivia continued, a cruel smirk spreading across her face. "The big debate competition? Our little Miss Perfect Amelia stood up there, and what did she do? She froze. Completely and utterly speechless. Started crying and ran off stage. It was hilarious. The whole school talked about it for weeks. So much for being the smart one, right?" A stunned silence fell over the room. The smiles vanished from my guests' faces, replaced by shocked whispers and awkward glances. My parents sat frozen, aghast, but made no move to stop her. Daniel, however, immediately stood up, his face thunderous. "Olivia, that's enough," he said, his voice low and dangerous. But Olivia was on a roll, fueled by alcohol and years of suppressed envy. "Oh, and remember that summer job you got, Amelia? The one where you claimed you invented that new inventory system? You told everyone it was your idea, but I saw your notes. You stole half those concepts from a book Mom had. You're a fraud, Amelia. A total fraud. And Daniel, you're marrying a liar." She ranted for another minute, dredging up every embarrassing or fabricated incident she could recall, twisting facts, and outright lying. By the time Daniel physically took the microphone from her, I was trembling, my face burning with humiliation. My beautiful rehearsal dinner, the prelude to my wedding, was ruined. Olivia, finally silenced, stumbled away, a triumphant sneer on her face. I fled the room, tears streaming down my face. Daniel followed, holding me as I sobbed uncontrollably. "I can't do this, Daniel," I choked out. "She's ruined everything. How can I walk down the aisle tomorrow knowing everyone heard that? My own sister." That night, I didn't sleep. The pain was excruciating, but beneath it, something else was brewing, a cold, hard resolve. This wasn't just about a ruined dinner. This was about a lifetime of being undermined, belittled, and now, publicly shamed by my own flesh and blood. Olivia had crossed a line, and there would be consequences. The next morning, I made a decision. I walked down the aisle, head held high, looking every bit the confident, successful woman I was. I married Daniel, my anchor, my rock, and his love was the shield against the whispers and the lingering embarrassment. But as I exchanged vows, a silent promise formed in my heart: I would make Olivia regret this. Not with anger, but with strategic, undeniable power. In the months that followed, I threw myself back into work with renewed ferocity. My company, already successful, exploded. We acquired 2 smaller competitors, expanded into Europe and Asia, and our valuation soared past $500 million. I was relentless, driven by a quiet, simmering fire. Daniel, sensing my focus, supported me unconditionally, understanding that this wasn't just about business anymore, it was about reclaiming my narrative. Olivia, meanwhile, seemed to believe she had won. She barely spoke to me after the wedding, sending only a curt, unapologetic text message. My parents, caught between us, offered weak apologies on her behalf, always followed by a "but she's your sister, Amelia, you have to forgive her." Their inability to truly condemn Olivia's actions only solidified my resolve. Then, about a year after the wedding, I started hearing whispers. My parents, despite their comfortable lifestyle, were not financially savvy. They had invested heavily in a series of speculative real estate ventures at Olivia's suggestion, hoping to fund her next big art project. The market had turned, and their investments were plummeting. Suddenly, the calls from them became more frequent, laced with thinly veiled requests for business advice and loan possibilities. I listened, politely, offering nothing but vague platitudes. Olivia, too, started reaching out. Her art was no longer selling, and her parents' dwindling funds meant her allowance was cut. She needed money for an exclusive artist residency abroad, a last-ditch effort to revive her floundering career. The requests started as casual mentions, then became more direct pleas. I responded with polite refusals, always citing my busy schedule. The climax arrived 18 months after the wedding. My parents' real estate investments had completely collapsed, leaving them with massive debts and facing foreclosure on their beloved family home. Olivia, who had pushed them into the worst of these ventures, was also in dire straits, having poured her own small inheritance into them as well. They were financially ruined, desperate, and had nowhere else to turn. One evening, my phone rang. It was my mother, her voice trembling. "Amelia," she began, her tone unusually meek. "Your father and we're in a terrible situation. The house, it's going to be repossessed. We don't know what to do." "I'm sorry to hear that, Mom," I replied, my voice calm, almost detached. "That sounds incredibly stressful." "Well, yes, it is. And Olivia, she's lost everything too. She's talking about having to move back in with us, but there won't be a us if we lose the house." There was a pause, then, haltingly, "We were hoping, you're so successful, Amelia. Could you help us? Just a loan, perhaps? Enough to cover the debts, save the house?" This was it. The moment I had anticipated, the moment I had worked tirelessly for. "Mom," I said, "I have to be honest. I'm not in the business of personal loans, especially not for such a large sum. However," I continued, "I do have a proposition. My company is in the process of acquiring several properties for our upcoming expansion. We're looking for a new corporate campus and some executive housing for our growing team." My mother was silent, listening intently. "I could have my team evaluate your property," I explained, along with several others in the area. "If it meets our specifications, we could consider purchasing it at market value. That would clear your debts, save you from foreclosure, and give you a fresh start. And Olivia, well, if she's looking for work, we always have administrative roles available. Nothing creative, I'm afraid, but stable." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. My mother knew exactly what I was doing. I wasn't bailing them out, I was acquiring their last asset, turning their desperation into my strategic advantage. It was a hostile takeover, disguised as a rescue. A few days later, my parents, along with a sheepish, defeated Olivia, sat across from me in my impossibly sleek, modern office. The irony was palpable. The girl they had dismissed, the one Olivia had tried to publicly humiliate, was now their only hope. "Amelia," my father began, his voice raspy. We've discussed your offer." "And?" I prompted, leaning back in my ergonomic chair, my expression neutral. We accept," he said, the words clearly painful. "It's the only way." "Good," I responded, pushing a folder across the polished glass table. "My legal team has prepared the purchase agreement. It includes a fair market valuation, covers all outstanding debts on the property, and ensures you both have enough capital to purchase a smaller home, debt-free." As for Olivia, I glanced at her, her face pale and drawn. "There's an employment contract for a junior administrative assistant position. Starting immediately." Olivia looked like she'd been slapped. "An administrative assistant? I'm an artist, Amelia." "And now you'll be a self-sufficient one," I replied, my voice devoid of emotion. "It's a good salary, health benefits, and a stable career path. Take it or leave it. But understand, Olivia, this is not a negotiation. It's my only offer to your family." There were no tears, no grand speeches. Just a cold, hard truth. They signed. My parents sold their family home to my company, settling their debts and securing their future, albeit on my terms. Olivia, swallowing her pride, accepted the administrative role. The look in her eyes as she signed the paperwork was a mixture of resentment, regret, and a dawning understanding of the power I now wielded. The family home became the site of my company's new AI research lab. The irony was exquisite. The place where my ambitions were once dismissed now housed the very engine of my success. Olivia, to her credit, proved to be a surprisingly efficient administrative assistant, though she avoided me in the office. With the immediate crisis averted and my revenge subtly, yet effectively, enacted, a strange sense of peace began to settle over me. The burning need for validation, the constant drive to prove myself, began to subside. I had achieved everything I set out to do and more. I had built an empire, secured my parents' future, on my terms, and given Olivia a taste of real-world consequences. But more importantly, I had found true independence. 1 year after the acquisition, my parents invited Daniel and me to dinner at their new, smaller home. It was a quiet evening. After the meal, as we sat in the living room, my father cleared his throat. "Amelia," he began, his voice soft, we owe you an apology. A sincere one. For everything. For not seeing your talent sooner. For letting Olivia treat you the way she did. For not protecting you at your rehearsal dinner. And for allowing our own foolishness to put us in such a desperate position." He looked at me, genuine remorse in his eyes. "You saved us, Amelia. Even when we didn't deserve it. You've become an incredible woman, and we are truly proud of you." My mother, tears welling in her eyes, nodded. "Your father is right. We failed you, my dear. And we are so sorry." Then Olivia, who had been silent, spoke up, her voice barely a whisper. "Amelia. I'm sorry too. I was consumed by jealousy. I saw everything you achieved as a judgment on my own failures. I hated you for it, and I tried to hurt you. What I did at your wedding, it was unforgivable. And seeing you now, seeing what you've built, and how you still helped us. I don't know what to say." She looked genuinely broken. "I was wrong, Amelia. About everything." I looked at them, truly looked at them, for the first time in years without the veil of hurt and resentment. Their apology felt real, raw, and earned. The words, "I forgive you," hovered on my tongue, but something held them back. It wasn't that I didn't want to forgive them, but rather that the act of forgiveness, in that moment, felt secondary. "Thank you," I said simply, my voice steady. "I appreciate your apology. It means a lot to hear it." I paused, then continued, choosing my words carefully. "What happened in the past, particularly what happened at my wedding, fundamentally changed me. It made me realize that I couldn't rely on anyone else's approval or love to define my worth. It forced me to build my own foundation, to create my own security. And in doing so, I found a strength I never knew I had." I took Daniel's hand, a warm, comforting presence beside me. My independence, my success, my happiness with Daniel, those were things I built for myself. The revenge, as you might call it, was simply a consequence of your actions, and a catalyst for me to fully embrace that independence. It gave me the freedom to move forward, without needing anything from you anymore. "I am glad we could resolve your financial situation," I continued, looking at my parents, "and I'm glad Olivia has found stability. But my peace, my genuine happiness, comes from within. It comes from the life Daniel and I are building together, and from the knowledge that I did it all on my own terms." They understood. They didn't need me to say "I forgive you" to know that the chapter of bitterness was closing. The sincere apology was enough, not because it erased the past, but because it acknowledged my journey. Walking out of their house that night, hand in hand with Daniel, I felt a lightness I hadn't experienced in years. The weight of expectation, the burden of seeking approval, had finally lifted. I had moved beyond needing them to acknowledge my worth, because I knew it myself. My sister had tried to ruin my wedding, and in doing so, she had inadvertently set me free. She had forced me to become the woman I was always meant to be, strong, independent, successful, and finally, truly at peace. And that, I realized, was the sweetest revenge of all. My life with Daniel was a testament to a love built on respect and equality, a stark contrast to the conditional affections of my past. We were building a future, not just for ourselves, but for the legacy of genuine connection and unwavering support, things I had once only dreamed of.